Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Sabirsary, and today we are answering your questions. Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. I am Megan, and this is our Q&A week. So we've been collecting all of your questions the past 2 weeks, and today is the answer session. So now, I got quite a few questions. A bunch of the questions are kind of all about the same general thing, and I'll talk about that a little later. But I wanted to sort of kind of address some of the questions that were not the one big general thing that everyone asked about, so that I at least get to those questions first. So I'm going to just jump right in. And so somebody asked me about my top 5 favorite bands, pagan or non-pagan. So I thought that was a great one. I have to say, all right, these are in no particular order because I don't think I could possibly just say a total absolute favorite. If I were talking about kind of pagan leaning bands or pagan artists, I probably would definitely say Blackmore's Night. I love Blackmore's Night. I also love Lorena McKennitt. I love Kellyanna, my cousin. I also love Alchemy 4. So those would be kind of on pagan side, but I would say my love of music is probably really eclectic and varied. I love Florence and the Machine. I love Arcona, if any of you are familiar with, it's a Russian heathen pagan death metal band. I also like Jewel, a lot of the early things, and I definitely love Adele, and I like listening to a lot of 80s power ballads. So it's probably, one of those tell-all confessionals or whatever, but I love my 80s power ballads. They rock my world. What can I say? It's excellent. Plus, I'm a huge fan of classic rock, so I will jam out to just about any good classic rock possible. I was totally rocking out just I think earlier today to Carry On My Wayward Son. It's my jam. So I like all of that. I like a little country sparsed in there, usually only by female artists, though I don't like male country singers for the most part. I'm just not a fan of hearing the voice. I really like some blues stuff like Delta Ray. If you haven't heard Bottom of the River, Delta Ray, whoa, awesome song. So I like a lot of that kind of stuff. I also am a huge fan of some smaller pagan artists as well, like Heather Jimeku. She does some great work, so check it out, different things. Somebody asked if I have a significant other, and if so, are they witchy? And yes, I have a significant other. I have a girlfriend. Her name is Lisa, and she is not witchy. She's actually Catholic, but not the Catholic that wouldn't be supportive of what I do in any respect. She's very open-minded and has come to ritual and things like that plenty of times and really enjoys everything that my side of the fence kind of has to offer. So it hasn't been many problems in that. I think the biggest problem that she has run into is just that her faith has a real problem recognizing her sexuality, and that's been really difficult. So if I were to move on, let's see. Strangest name someone has ever introduced themselves to you as. Strangest name? Well, when I was in undergrad, it's not a name that somebody introduced themselves to me as, but who I was in undergrad. I started off as a theater major, and my name was Ocean to everybody. In fact, my friends from college in Salem still call me Ocean. It's how they know me. It's how they were introduced to me. Even on my papers to professors, I would have Ocean written down and my last name. So it was definitely a different kind of name, and everyone would be like, oh, did you have hippie parents or something? And I'm like, no, it's just a nickname because I like the ocean. So I guess that's a little different. What's the longest you've gone without sleep? Oh, geez. At least 72 hours, probably a little bit more. I routinely do all-nighters and things like that. What cheers me up? Cheers me up, reality television. A brand new episode of The Big Bang Theory, or like right now, Orange is the New Black. Loving it. What else cheers me up? Funny things. I like laughing a lot. I like somebody taking the time just to surprise me, or, you know, say something unexpected, something like that. That cheers me up. Also, silly things cheer me up. So doing something really spontaneous just for the fun of it really cheers me up. Like doing something totally corny and fun. And I remember my best friend, sometimes we would go, there was an old Burger King in our town that had one of those play centers, and when we were sad or bored or whatever, we would go there and we would actually just play on the play structure, like in the middle of the night, because it was a 24-hour thing, and that really cheered me up. So, any herbs for psychological issues? So, well, most people know that there is St. John's wort can help with depression, but you need to be very careful of it. It can affect birth control and antibiotics and things like that. So it's not something I routinely recommend. Mainly what I recommend is getting yourself on the right combination of vitamins. I think that that's a big, big deal. I, across the board, 100% feel that one of the biggest contributors to mild depression that people feel, you know, clinical depression is different. You know, when they're coming to my office and it's a chemical depression, absolutely, that's so different. But when you have just the mild blues and you're like, I don't know what's going on, get your vitamin D levels checked. So many people have low vitamin D levels, and it really contributes to not only fatigue and depression, but sore muscles, irritability, insomnia, fatigue, all of these things. So get your vitamin D levels checked. Make sure you're getting enough vitamin D. And you really can't tell if you're just taking it, because some people don't absorb it well. I know I don't. I have to absorb it from the sun. It is the best type of vitamin D. It's vitamin D3. That is the kind that you need. And a lot of people have a very hard time absorbing it from their food, primarily because it needs calcium to be absorbed with. And no, drinking milk with it will not help your calcium. Milk actually leaches calcium from your bones. There's not enough calcium in the milk to neutralize all the casein that is in the milk. That is the protein in the milk, the animal fat protein. It's casein, and it's highly acidic. And calcium, as you can imagine, it's what neutralizes the acidity in your blood. That's why we need it. It helps our bones, everything. And there is not enough calcium in milk, okay? In most milk, which I'm referring to like 1%, 2% skim milk here. Whole milk from the cow, you're kind of evening out. It's level. But in those other forms of milk, there's not enough calcium to neutralize all of the casein. So you actually end up taking calcium out of your bloodstream, out of your bones, in order to neutralize what you're drinking and putting in. So it doesn't in any way help the absorption of vitamin D3. Taking a calcium supplement would. That would help. You can take those two supplements together. But the best way is to really get a lot of dark leafy greens into your diet. Broccoli has way more calcium than milk does. And you don't need to use any of that calcium to neutralize any type of acidity in the broccoli. It's perfectly fine. So, moving on. Christo-paganism. I don't have a lot to say. I hope that I didn't get a chance to watch Rich's video. I hope that he addressed this as our resident Christo-pagan. For me, I have never been Christian. I don't really know. It's not my thing. Sorry. Oh, would you consider yourself a starseed? That's a whole nother video in and of itself. Am I a fan of Pleiades, yes. Am I a fan of the starseed idea? Yes. Would I consider myself a starseed? Huh. Maybe, maybe. I might make another video on that. There's a lot of things about that kind of come into it. So if you're not familiar, you can certainly Google it, look it up. There's a whole world out there that you probably didn't even know was going on. But I think I'll make another video on that, and I'll try and just keep checking my channel. I'll make a video about starseeds, and my view on it is a little bit different than the classic, but in general, yeah, kind of, with a couple little caveats, if that makes sense. So, okay. Oh, and how has your psychology practice influenced your path? Huge ways, huge ways. So one of the things that's difficult in psychology is anything that's sort of outside of the realm of a normal, quote unquote, can often be pathologized and is oftentimes looked at as some sort of clinical issue or diagnosis. So oftentimes you'll see somebody who would be, by some people, categorized as a paranoid schizophrenic, for example. Now, they might be coming in and seeing, hallucinations, might be hearing some different types of auditory hallucinations. They might be experiencing some delusions, some paranoid thinking, all of that. And some of it might be associated with religion. Some of it might be associated with the other world. And it becomes a difficult sort of line to walk, primarily because I tend to see a lot of children. And one of the things that can be difficult is children and their ability to access the other world is greater than adults. And so when they talk to me about their experiences with fairies, they talk to me about seeing spirits and things, there are some therapists who would immediately pathologize that. Whereas I feel a much more balanced approach. I let them speak about it, I learn about it, and I really assess whether or not this is creating a maladaptive situation in their lives. Maladaptive just means mal is bad or not good in a way, and adaptive means something that is working for them and is adaptive to their life. And so if something is maladaptive, and it's basically going to create problems for them down the line or creating problems for them right now. So I look and see, well, is their conversations with fairies out in their backyard, is that maladaptive to their life? If it's not, if it's providing them some sort of comfort or joy, and it's not impeding their social development, and it's not impeding their learning or things like that, then I don't see any need in changing that or altering that in any way. So I really look at, how is the child doing as a whole? Are they healthy? Are they happy? And going from there. So it definitely has influenced my path, and I think for many ways the better. All right. So somebody asked about the other world, and in meditations, have I had any experiences with the other world? All the time. All the time. I work with the Fae quite a bit. I have different shrines in my home to the Fae. I'm closely connected with the other world. It's the way that I was brought up. So that going into, now we have sort of the big chunk of the questions. And so, they are, can you speak about your childhood? How is it to be raised a pagan? What are your best souvenirs? Also, what are the main beliefs of your tradition? What are your tradition's name? What, it's a family, is it, passed down? Hear about your childhood. And what your experiences, how did your parents introduce you? Family tradition, how is it different from Gardenian or Wiccan? Well, Gardenian is Wiccan. And then, I was wondering what your particular path is exactly, and what his particular beliefs are and how it differs from other paths. I'm curious about the specifics. So, okay, so a lot of people really want to know, tell me exactly how your path works. Tell me exactly it. It's almost like write a book. And sorry, I can't do that. I know that I have tried to say in videos before how this is a family tradition. It's not something that is for other people. This is not something that I can tell you the specifics of. I'm sorry. I know you want to know. And I feel bad that I can't tell you, but it is not my place to tell you. That is not my path. It is not something for the general public to know. It's just not the way that it works. I cannot tell you the specifics. I cannot tell you what my particular beliefs are and the particular ways that I practice those beliefs. I cannot. I'm sorry. So that being said, I encourage you to read about paths that are more public knowledge, like Wicca. My path is not public knowledge, nor will it ever be public knowledge. That is just not the way it is. And I'm sorry for those of you that might be upset that I won't give you a kind of like a how-to manual to my path. It's not the way that I am or my path is. So that being said, childhood. So growing up pagan, at least for my path, is very different than I think some children growing up pagan in a more public path is like. I grew up in a private path. It was not something that, though I did let everybody know in school and things like that, like, hey, I'm a witch. And I got in a lot of trouble for it. I got picked on, I got bullied. I once was in a bathroom and the kids turned off the lights and yelled, "Fly, Megan, fly." So I've definitely received my share of bullying, even some death threats. I was pushed down the stairs once in Brattleboro, Vermont, in middle school. It wasn't easy. So definitely that part of childhood was hard because I wasn't quiet about it. Now, it is not really my place to talk about my relatives because not all of them are out of the broom closet, so to speak. But yes, many of my relatives practice. This is something on my mother's side. This is not something on my father's side. My father is secular. So my father has basically, in essence, no definable religion. To him, he's all about universal energy and kind of just following with the status quo. So to him, he'll have a tree, he'll have presents, he'll, if you want to do a basket with chocolate, sure, as long as he can get a piece. He's fine with sort of the American secular holidays. To him, that's what matters. My parents are divorced, so we kind of had that, and then my mom's side. So on my mom's side is also my native side. As I have mentioned in previous videos, or on my personal channel at least, I am from the Kanesetake. So this is a tribe, a Mohawk tribe of the Iroquois Federation, the Iroquois Nation. The Mohawks are a large tribe, and within that are smaller villages. So I am the Kanesetake. There's another sister village that we have, the Kanawakes. If you look up and you want to know more about my tribe, you can look up the Oka crisis, OKA, that happened in 1990. This was a huge, huge standoff between my tribe and the Quebec government. They tried to take our ancestral burial grounds and turn it into a 19-hole golf course. They succeeded in getting 9 holes up. We're still fighting. It was a very long standoff. I was young. I wasn't there at the time. It was dangerous. But my cousin, Ellen Gabriel, was one of our leaders. One thing to understand about my tribe is that we are matriarchal. And so because of that, the women are the ones who decide when we go to war. The women elders are very important. If you watch any of the videos, in fact, you'll see in one news clip, one of the Kanesetake women, she drives up and she's like, "Get the F over there," like talking to one of our men, and he listens in right quickly because you don't mess with us. So my path is a mixture of native and pagan beliefs. It combined basically what was going on already, sort of in our native belief coming from my grandmother, and also then coming from my great-grandmother and my mother. And it kind of combined into what we have now as our faith, which is very native focused. However, there are some extra elements added in because of a path that was passed down because of my grandfather, who was not native. So there was some extra blood added in. And I know I'm being vague and I'm sorry, but it's something that I cannot give true specifics about. And like I said, that's just the way it is. And I apologize for it. I know that it can be frustrating, but I cannot give you more information than that. As far as childhood goes, we do not celebrate the classic Wheel of the Year that you would see in Wicca, Gardenian, Alexandrian, any of those. Even Strega has a Wheel of the Year with the classic harvest festivals. We don't celebrate that calendar. I recognize that calendar now with my pagan friends, and being in the pagan community, I have adopted some of those holidays, so to speak, but that is not my calendar. I don't celebrate on those days. We have different celebrations, and unfortunately that is one of those things that I cannot tell you is what those holidays are, and I'm so sorry about this. So it makes it very difficult to be able to discuss my personal path when the specifics are being asked. I can tell you that I really loved my childhood. I felt very connected. At all times, I was encouraged to have relationships with the other world. I was encouraged to make shrines to the Fae. I was encouraged to build fairy houses and to speak to the other world and to meditate and to astral project. I was taught at a young age how to meditate at a very young age. I began truly practicing and celebrating ritual with my family at age 9. So they brought me in basically when I was ready to. Everyone is able to see everything. Everybody is able to know everything 100% of the time. There's never anything that is kept back. And you were basically allowed to come in when you can sit still and you can do what you're told. That's when you're allowed to participate. For me, that was age 9, and I was able to do what I needed to do and follow directions. But otherwise, I loved my childhood. I loved being able to grow up with this strong heritage and this strong knowledge in what I believe and where it comes from. And it's important that I think if you are thinking about raising your children pagan, make sure that they have that strong root and that strong foundation. Build things into your practice to help them along the way. Coloring books, toys, stories. Stories are so important. Stories were probably the way I learned. We do have a family book, but really stories were where it is at. Being told a story, it's an oral tradition. My entire faith, my entire practice really hinges around oral tradition. And I can't stress that enough. That is the primary guiding light, is oral tradition. So make sure that you have stories that you can modify to the age of the child, so that you can tell the stories in ways that they understand, and then you can add to them later to give them more depth, to give them more understanding, and to add that extra layer on of, well, this is what it really means. You were just too young before. Well, let's add on to the story. So really think about that. Think about what you believe and break it down and find the story within it. Find a way of telling it so that it's accessible for the younger generation. That is something my tradition does very well with, is oral tradition and stories. It's our backbone, and I can't wait to share them with my kids when I have them one day. So that's what I can kind of tell you about this. And yeah, I think that's about it. I know I wasn't able to answer your specific questions about my path. As I have said in previous videos, it's not something I can tell you, and I'm sorry about that. But hopefully I gave you a little bit more insight, at least as much as I could, into my overall experience growing up pagan and growing up in my path. Oh, one other question. Somebody asked what the name of my path is, and there is no name for it. It's not a named path. It is just the way. It is just what we believe. It was never named, and in fact, I called myself a witch, but that was never even something that we were titled growing up. That's not something that I was ever told I was. It was as I grew older and I started reading on my own, realizing some of the similarities to what I believed and what I was taught. That's when I was able to adopt the term witch, and I felt very comfortable with that. And pagan, it was not, again, something that we used. It was never titled pagan growing up. I think that's important to know. It was just the way. It was what we believed, and it was not something that was talked about. So it's not something that you shared with everybody. I was a precocious child, and once I was able to read some books and go, oh my goodness, I'm pagan. This is witchcraft. When I cast a spell, this is what I'm doing. When I do this particular ritual, this is what casting a spell is. I'm focusing and doing this. That is what it is. So I put those two and two together, and my whole family has, for the most part, banded around that. Most of them will still not acknowledge to the public who they are or what they believe, but many of them do acknowledge now the term pagan, and a couple even acknowledge the term witch. So it is something that is growing and evolving. It is just the way, though, to us. There is no name. So hopefully that answers it. But I know this video is going to be crazy, crazy long. So I really appreciate all your questions. And next week is subs week. Make sure you got some questions for them as well, because you'll be asking them questions in this week's video for next month. And I will see you guys next month. As always, blessed be.